What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video we're going to be reviewing Zwan's Mary Star of the Sea. So we're going to be doing another Smashing Pumpkins quote-unquote album review. We've reviewed all the albums up to this album so far, and so we're going to be talking about Billy Corgan and Jimmy Chamberlin's side project, Zwan. We're going to go through the same thing we normally do. We're going to go through the history, and we're going to go through every single song on the album, and just like we've always done. So we started with Gish, and we went all the way up. So if you guys missed any of the past Smashing Pumpkins album reviews, make sure you guys check those out. I believe by the time you're watching this, they are officially back on tour. That's awesome. I can't wait. I'm sure as you're watching this, and as they have been on tour, I've just been watching so many YouTube videos of them playing just to see that. I'm going to go see them in Toronto, and we're going to have a video about that, about me reviewing their live experience. So those are some of the things coming up on the channel, Smashing Pumpkins related. So, Zwan, Mary, the Star of the Sea was released on January 28th, 2003. So again, we're going to talk about like the history of this album a little bit first, kind of what I think overall about this album. And to be honest, I like this album quite a lot. Now, the album had just as much drama and things gone behind the scenes with it as any Smashing Pumpkins album. I mean, they continue that as long as Billy Corgan is involved, there seems to always be something that happens, and there's no difference with Zwan. In fact, Zwan was one of the most messed up times that Billy Corgan ever had to go through. I honestly feel super bad for that guy, because what happened with Zwan was just a complete failure. I mean, him and Jimmy Chamberlin made this band kind of all of this alternate rock, these icons, these kind of people that, at least in the circle of alternate rock, were very highly respected, the people that they brought on for this band. But it just didn't work. Billy Corgan was actually asked, like, in an interview afterwards, after Zwan happened, and said, like, who would you reunite with first, Darcy Retzky and James Iha, or Zwan, or like those three? And he said, in a heartbeat, the first two, because they actually loved each other, they cared about each other, they performed numerous times. Zwan, nobody took it seriously. I remember watching interviews and reading interviews too with Billy Corgan, that they would go to the recording studio and they would order like lobster, and they would order like steak, and they would order like high-priced food. They didn't want to play their own instruments. They wanted others to tune their instruments for them. They seemed to act like divas, is what really was the case, and nobody got along. I mean, there was drug use, as there most of the time is with bands like that. There was stealing. Somebody, I think, stole money from Billy Corgan. Somebody in that band, obviously not Jimmy Chamberlin, so one of the other three. So there was just so much that happened. They hated each other. I don't think they respected Billy Corgan, and the recording sessions did not go over very well, to the point that when they released this album, the band dissolved in 7 months. They didn't do really anything. They went on tour in a way that kind of did like shows, like festivals, but they cut a lot of the tour part that they were going to do. They had longer tours planned, and they cut them, and they just the whole band just stopped. And that's probably for the best, because that just seems like a very toxic atmosphere. But again, taking all that with a grain of salt, that is obviously what happens in a Billy Corgan-led group. There just seems, and I'm not blaming him, and I'm not saying that it is him, but there were a lot of problems, and I give the guy huge props, because here's the thing. Zwan, as a whole, and the album is really good. The album has a lot of reminding you that this is the Smashing Pumpkins still. As long as it's Billy Corgan, you're always getting that piece of Smashing Pumpkins, whether it's his voice, whether it's the guitar, whatever. And with Jimmy Chamberlin, you also get that as well. The thing is, Zwan has always been looked at as kind of that middle ground where, in a way, it actually built stuff back up. He actually did stuff better than he did towards the end of the Smashing Pumpkins time, but we start to get some hidden, we start to get some things revealed about what's going to happen in the future. We start to hear some clues as to what like Zeitgeist is going to sound like. And now I'm actually going to be reviewing these albums like back to back in terms of recording. So, and I've been listening to Zeitgeist quite a lot, and you can definitely hear its presence in this album, but you can also hear the tail end of the Smashing Pumpkins. I mean, there is a lot of Machina 2 in this album. Now, the album is very much, it's more of like a pop rockish album than necessarily an alternate that you would imagine with the Smashing Pumpkins album. The guitars at no point ever like punch you in the face. There's no Everlasting Gaze here. There's no Bullet with Butterfly Wings, and there's no like Siamese Dream like songs here. But the album, again, does remind you of some of the more light-hearted, not really light-hearted in terms of, I don't mean like in terms of message, but I mean of like calmness and the melodies, and in terms of the guitar playing and the music in the background, reminds you more of the Machina and Machina 2 era. At the same time, you do again start to see some of that zeitgeist where there's a lot of dual recordings of Billy Corgan, not as much as Zeitgeist, that was just something else. And you start to hear a little bit more of him kind of singing above all of the instruments, which was a huge complaint in Zeitgeist, kind of the mixing problem where, there's so many instruments going on, but Billy Corgan's voice is definitely like above them. Zwan, to me, this album still is super, super good, and I don't think any of the negatives that we start to kind of see and be like, oh, this is, what's going to happen. We don't necessarily see that, and it doesn't really ruin it. It doesn't at all, actually. I shouldn't say it doesn't really. It doesn't ruin the experience. Zwan is an album that's super, super good, especially, in my opinion, the second half. Basically, from like Endless Summer on, this album is a really nice mix of emotions. It's got some really nice long songs. It's got some really nice guitar work. Jimmy Chamberlin crushes it the entire time, does a phenomenal job on the drums. And I really like Billy Corgan's voice. It's definitely like an evolution of the Machina 1, Machina 2. And I think overall, some of the lyrics and some of the actual sounds of Billy Corgan's voice is some of the best I think he's ever sang. And again, the guitar work, I really, really like it. They do a lot of the things that the Smashing Pumpkins did, and that's obvious because it's Billy Corgan. But they do it again, where they have, they have really awesome solos. They have a lot of guitar work going on at the same time, which is, it makes sense because they have 3 guitarists in that band at the time. So you're going to have a lot of guitar work, but they do a lot of things where they match the guitar sounds with Billy Corgan's voice. Something that if you guys have watched any of the videos I've made, they do that every single album. They do it in Zeitgeist, and I love it in Zeitgeist, and they do it in Zwan, and I love it in Zwan. So they really do carry on traditions of the Smashing Pumpkins, and we start to see a little bit of the Zeitgeist era. But overall, I love this album. I really do enjoy listening to it. There's a lot of songs, so I'll just listen to it over and over and over again. And I think overall the album is super, super solid. Second half is amazing. I think the first half goes back and forth. There's some problems there, but really there's still some very, very strong songs. This album is characterized by just really, really strong songs. It didn't sell amazingly well, but it did sell decently, and critically it actually did really well, saying that it was, Billy Corgan was kind of back on track and all that stuff. So critics at the time liked this album, actually liked it quite a lot, liked it more than I'd say the Machina album. So overall it was a solid piece of Billy Corgan's time. And then we move on, and he did The Future Embrace after that by himself, and then Zeitgeist. So let's go into every single song in this album. We'll take it from there. Starting with number 1 in Lyric. Now, Lyric is a song that I think is one of the weaker songs on the album. It was a single, it was a music video, but it was just a weaker song on the album, and a song to start the album off with, a little puzzling, but in a way it kind of represents a lot about what this album sounds like. You really get hit with everything, and the sound, the actual sound you're hearing in Lyric, definitely characterizes the rest of the album. Now, it doesn't have some of the more heavier guitar stuff, and it doesn't really have any of the heavier drum stuff, because like I said, Jimmy Chamberlin crushes it. Just like he does in Zeitgeist, he crushes it here, where there are some songs that he just completely dominates over. And this isn't necessarily one of those for the guitar or the drums, but in terms of just how it sounds, the more kind of pop and lightheartedness, where it doesn't seem like it's going to like hit you in the face, it doesn't really hook on to you. I honestly think the next song, Settle Down, is the song that does that. Settle Down is a song that, again, the guitar, everything, the verses, it all matches Billy Corgan's voice, which I love. I absolutely love it when they do that. So I love that song. Settle Down is an amazing song. Love his voice, love the guitar, love the solo towards the end. Jimmy Chamberlin crushes it. The fills that he has at the end of that song while the solo is going on is some of the best work at the same time of guitar and drums that they have ever done in their 30-year history. It's one of the best I've ever seen. Settle Down is one of my favorite songs by Zwan, and also, if you want to consider Zwan Smashing Pumpkins, it's one of my favorite songs by far. And then it continues with Declarations of Faith, which is, I think, a very, very good song. This song, in my opinion, is characterized more by Billy Corgan's voice, and he really does lead the way with his voice, and I personally really, really like it. I like the guitar work in the first half, And again, the second half of it is very, again, characterized by the heavy and quick drums, the really creative drum fills, and also the fact that it's kind of like the solo-ish part where it matches his voice. But just the entire second half of that song, really, again, propelled by his voice, that is one of my favorite songs on this album too, and that's what we get. The first couple of songs on this album are very back and forth. The lyric doesn't do literally anything for me, but then Settle Down and Declarations of Faith are super, super good. But then we get to Honestly. Now, Honestly is a song that I honestly go back and forth on. When I first listened to it, I want to say it's a song that I can listen to just over and over. I can just keep hitting replay. It very much depends on the mood I'm in, because Honestly is, again, a kind of a radio hit song, and it was. I mean, it was the number one, it was the single for that. That's what they decided to go for, or the record label. But you can tell because it is, again, a slower song. It's got some nice guitar work for sure. It's got some nice, distortion and some nice effects going on the guitar. It's got some nice voice. His voice is really good in it. But it just seems not necessarily like a generic song, because I do think it deserves more credit than being called a generic song. But it just doesn't have like the flair and the hook that Settle Down and Declarations of Faith have. And I guess when you come right after those songs, that's just what you get. An overall a good song, but not really an amazing song. Then we have El Sol, which kind of brings it back. This song is a little bit more reminiscent of a Declarations of Faith. I do love this song. I'd say, here's what I'll say about this song though. This is a song that I think is skippable sometimes and non-skippable other times. It's in a level that's above Honestly for me, where I do want to listen to it more often than not. But if I'm going through this album and I'm just wanting to hear my favorite songs, the songs that I just want to hear, this is a song I normally skip over. Although I do like it. It does have kind of a catchiness to it. It's more of a pop-ish song in terms of that it does actually kind of reach out and grab you, but not necessarily through, raw emotion or power or anything, but it's kind of just catchy. Like everything about it, like you just feel, you want to follow this song along. Whereas the next song, Of a Broken Heart, this is a song I have trouble listening to every single time, because to be honest, it doesn't do the acoustic, stripped down nature as well as I would have liked it to. It reminds me of Heart Song later in the album, like 2 songs later, but it just doesn't do it as well. It's an acoustic-ish song, but there's really nothing special about it. Through his career, Billy Corgan has been really, really good at writing acoustic songs, and he's got acoustic songs in pretty much every single album, and I adore some of his acoustic songs. Everyone. The Machina acoustic songs actually are probably some of my favorite acoustic songs he's ever done. The only album he didn't really do acoustic songs in is Zeitgeist. But I will say that this song I just don't think works, because I just don't think there's enough emotion or enough power in it. Even though it is stripped down, it is acoustic, you do have to have something there, and I think Heart Song does have that we'll get to later. But then it starts to really turn around in my opinion. Ride a Black Swan is next, and this is again a more pop-ish rock song that starts to turn the page and starts to get a whole lot more consistent. I just like the song. There's not a ton to say about it. I do like his voice. I do like the guitar work and the drums. That's pretty much the 3 pillars of this album. There are some good lyric writing, in this, but in terms of why I like the songs I like, it generally comes down to those 3 things. The drums are either amazing, the guitar work is special or different, and his voice is powerful, emotional, things like that. Those are like the 3 things that grab me about the songs that I care about the most, and this song is one of them. Whereas the next song, again, Heart Song, this is again characterized, I think, squarely by his voice. Now, it does have the acoustic, it does have kind of the background noises in it, but I really, really love this song because of Billy Corgan's voice. And this song does sound more emotional. It sounds like he's putting himself more in the song. And this is a really good song. Again, out of the acoustic songs, out of those 2, this is definitely the song I'll listen to. This is a song I really, really love overall. Then we kick it up. Endless Summer is a song that I think is very much faster paced, and this is the song I think hits you the most, whether or not it's the best song, because it's not my favorite song on this album, not even by that not by anything, because there's actually probably 6, 7, 8 songs I like more than it. But in terms of how much it can actually like punch you in the face, I guess if you want to try and compare it to an Everlasting Gaze or a song that really does just hit you, this is probably the best one because it really has some really nice guitar work. It's loud. Like literally the mixing of it is louder. All the instruments are turned up. His voice is turned up. There is more emotion and more in-your-faceness in his voice. So everything I think in the song is just kicked up, and it doesn't really make for that amazing of a song because the song isn't the greatest song, but in terms of like emotion and power and in how, you know, and how loud it is basically and how much they do play around with the guitar work in this song is very, very good, and so is the drums. It is one of the best songs on the album for that reason. Whereas then we go to the next one, it's Baby Let's Rock, and I really, really like this song. It's the next two songs, this and then Yeah, are kind of simplistic in a way, where there's not a lot of, the lyrics aren't that much. There's not actually that many lyrics to it. But Baby Let's Rock, again, characterized by very, very heavy guitar, more reminiscent of something in the Machina or even Melancholy days of Smashing Pumpkins. More, again, he's kind of yelling, there is way more emotion to him, and really, really loud and thundering, you know, drums. And I really, really like that overall. And like I said, Yeah is next, and this song is really, really good, and it's funny because half the lyrics of the song are him saying yeah. And then obviously there's like the verses and stuff, and I really do like that, and I love the verses the most about the song when he's singing and the guitar is going behind him. Just literally the progression of the guitar as he's singing. I love it. I really do love the song. I really, really love the ending. Again, kind of a nice little guitar solo going on while he's singing. Doesn't necessarily match what he's singing, like some of the songs he does, you know, have that happen. But I really, really like how they contrast each other. I think it works super, super well. Yeah is one of my favorite songs of the album, and definitely one that I like skip to, and I can just listen to that song over and over and over. But the next song, Desire, is my favorite song on this album. Now this, more acoustic-y, but not necessarily acoustic because you can't necessarily even hear the guitar work half the time in this song. It's more characterized by just different kind of sounds in the background. There is guitar, you know, it's more like single note progressions for the guitar, but this song is carried 100% by Billy Corgan's voice, and I love it. This song, in terms of how he sounds in it, is one of the two of my favorite kind of Billy Corgan sounding voices. The other one is Try, 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 the alternate take on Machina 2. If I could blend those two voices of Billy Corgan together, that would be my ideal Billy Corgan singing voice, because Desire, the way he sings, I can see how people can look at the song, and this is the song that I think most represents him singing above the instruments, maybe even the next song. But you can really, really hear his voice, and then there's everything else. And I think done right, it doesn't matter, because if you like his voice, and I do, I really, really love Billy Corgan's voice. If you love his voice, then this is like a treat for you. Now if you don't, and if you put up with them because of like the actual music and not his voice, this song I think would be very, very difficult, because it is more of just a stripped down, emotional kind of song, but very much driven by his voice, and that's personally why I like it so much. Next we have Jesus, I, Mary, Star of the Sea. This is that 15-minute, I think 14-minute and 54-second song. Here's the thing, I like this song quite a bit. And at the same time, I think the song is super, super unnecessary, because when it comes to a song that's 15 minutes long, you don't need to have that be that long. Now, he has been known to do this in like basically every single album, and you know, there's always kind of that one song that's much, much longer, but it's never gotten this long. Most of the long songs, dating all the way back to Silver, Blank, and Siamese Dream, but all throughout, you know, Porcelina, Martha and Adore, all those kinds of songs, Glass and the Ghost Children, they're all like 8, 9, 10 minutes. This one, 15 minutes. Now here's what I'll say is the song is kind of broken up, in my opinion, into 3 sections. The first third, which is really, really enjoyable, more of just a rock song. There's music going on, there's the guitar, there's drums, there's him singing. Then we have just the instrumental part, which is a little bit repetitive, but I really, really like. It's stripped down. It's got a lot of different guitars. You can tell all 3 of them are doing something that complements each other and sounds really, really good. And then you get the drums to come back in, and then you get the guitar changing a little bit, and I like that change. As soon as the drums come in on that instrumental part, and then the guitar changes to kind of get us into that last third, I love that part. So I really do think the instrumental part works really, really well. And then we have the third part, which is a lot heavy. It's louder, and it's got more guitar oriented, with it again kind of matching with the octaves of Billy Corgan's voice, but also heavy, heavy drums. I mean, Jimmy Chamberlain kills it the last 3-4 minutes of the song. I love this song. This is one of the best songs on the album. But in terms of like a casual listener, this is just a huge mistake. It really is, because who is going to listen to a 15-minute song unless you're a die-hard fan? And now, maybe if you're not a die-hard fan, why would you get this album in the first place as a side project of Billy Corgan? I don't know. But if you really want this album to do well and you want to make it, you know, for the masses, I don't know if this is why I don't know if this is a song you necessarily do. He didn't really do this. Actually, no, never mind. He did do this with Zeitgeist. I was going to say United States. I was thinking about long songs. So he does do this every single time. Other than Monuments to an Elegy, he didn't do it in that album. The longest song is like 5.5 minutes. So he doesn't even come close in that album. But I personally love this song. I just don't think that a casual listener would be able to make it. I don't even think somebody can listen to 15 minutes of one song without getting bored. And here's what I'll say is he does do a good job of keeping you into it. It's characterized by thirds. There's 3 parts to this song, and I really like all 3 parts. And to me, I can listen to the whole thing without getting bored, but I don't know about others. And the final song on this album is Come With Me, a song that I think wraps it up rather well. They do some really weird effects on his voice, some things that they've never actually done before, they've never really done after. I do like it. It actually sounds very, very different and very unique. I wouldn't want to hear it more often. That's not what I'm saying. But the song overall does do good. I really like the harmonica in it, and I like the guitar work. Again, I like the kind of, it's not really a solo towards the end, but I do like everything they do with this song in terms of the guitar, in terms of the drums, and in terms of his voice. This is a good way to wrap up the album, and it kind of, in a way, sounds a lot like Lyric, where there's nothing massively special about the song, but it does have, unlike Lyric, it does have like a hook to it. To me, it's very, very catchy. To me, I can listen to it over and over and over again. I really do like his voice. I feel like there's more emotion in his voice in the song than at least half the songs on the album. So this is a song I can continue to come back to on Mary the Star of the Sea. So I overall love this album. I really, really do. I have a lot of fun going back to listen to this album. I forget sometimes how much I like some of the songs on this album. It's not as good as some of the best Smashing Pumpkins albums. I think it's probably the weakest of them all, but we haven't even gotten there yet because Zeitgeist is up next. And I'll just quickly say about Zeitgeist, I'm going to say in the review too, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. I really enjoy it. It's not a good Smashing Pumpkins album. It's easily the weakest, but I really, really enjoy it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I'd enjoy it. So that's going to come up in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we're going to be reviewing Zeitgeist, and we're going to be going from there. We got a couple more albums to do. I'm going to be reviewing their tour when I go see them live, and then I have other ideas I want to do for Smashing Pumpkins, like rankings and stuff like that. And I want to keep making these videos because I love making these videos. And as long as you guys watch them, I will continue to make them. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks.